Welcome to the Battle of Gettysburg, a tactical case study. In this presentation, we will analyze the pivotal three-day conflict that unfolded from July 1 through the 3rd, 1863. Set against the backdrop of Adams County, Pennsylvania, this turning point of the American Civil War serves as our focal point for evaluating strategic maneuvers, command decisions, and tactical outcomes on the 19th-century battlefield. To understand Gettysburg, we must look at the high-stakes prelude of summer 1863. Fresh off victory at Chancellorsville, Confederate General Robert E. Lee launched a strategic offensive northward to relieve ravaged Virginia, forage in Pennsylvania, and threaten major northern cities to force a negotiated peace. Meanwhile, Washington faced a sudden command crisis. Demanding a protective shield for the capital, a frustrated President Lincoln relieved General Joseph Hooker, placing Major General George G. Meade in command of the Army of the Potomac just 3 days before the battle. The geopolitical stakes were massive. The Confederacy sought vital European recognition via a northern victory, while Union forces besieged Vicksburg in the west. A dual southern defeat could break the Confederacy entirely. Let us look at the commander's matrix, contrasting the opposing leaders. For the Union, Major General George G. Meade leads the Army of the Potomac. Appointed a mere 3 days before the battle, his mindset is defensive and reactive. Tasked with protecting Washington, D.C., and Baltimore, he has planned a fallback defensive position at the Pipe Creek line. Conversely, General Robert E. Lee commands the Confederate Army of Northern Virginia, a post he has held since June 1862. Lee is highly aggressive, offensive, and supremely confident in his troops' invincibility. However, he is crucially operating without his most trusted subordinate, Thomas J. Stonewall Jackson, who was killed that May. Next, we examine the Army composition and engaged strength, highlighting the Union's material advantage. The Union fielded 93,921 soldiers against a Confederate force of 71,699 to 75,000 men. This numerical superiority extended to firepower, with the Union deploying 360 artillery pieces compared to the Confederacy's 270. In the cavalry arm, the Union deployed approximately 9,500 troopers under Pleasanton, who were now proving equal to their Southern counterparts following the Battle of Brandy Station. Crucially for the Confederacy, J.E.B. Stuart's legendary cavalry division was notably absent during the initial movements, depriving General Lee of vital reconnaissance when he needed it most. This slide outlines the Union order of battle for the Army of the Potomac under Major General George G. Meade. The command structure is distributed across 7 infantry corps. The 1st Corps under Reynolds, Doubleday, and Newton, 2nd Corps under Hancock, 3rd Corps under Sickles, 5th Corps under Sykes, 6th Corps under Sedgwick, 11th Corps under Howard, and 12th Corps under Slocum. Supporting these infantry units are 2 centralized arms. The Cavalry Corps is commanded by Major General Pleasanton, featuring divisions led by Buford, Gregg, and Kilpatrick. Finally, the Artillery Reserve is managed by Brigadier General Tyler alongside Chief of Artillery Hunt, completing the Union's tactical organization. Turning to the Confederate order of battle, we see the Army of Northern Virginia under General Robert E. Lee, newly reorganized following the death of Stonewall Jackson. Lee's forces are structured into 3 main infantry corps and a cavalry division. The 1st Corps is led by Lieutenant General James Longstreet, commanding the divisions of McLaws, Pickett, and Hood. The 2nd Corps is commanded by Lieutenant General Richard S. Ewell, and the 3rd Corps by Lieutenant General A. P. Hill, both generals notably new to Corps command. Ewell oversees Early, Johnson, and Rhodes, while Hill commands Anderson, Heth, and Pender. Finally, the Cavalry Division remains under Major General J.E.B. Stuart, featuring brigades such as Hampton and Fitzhugh Lee. Let us look at geological determinism, the terrain as a player. Terrain dictated the battle's tactical flow, granting the Union key advantages. First, the Union formed a tight, 1-mile interior line known as the fishhook, running from Culp's Hill and Cemetery Hill, down Cemetery Ridge to Little Round Top. This allowed General Meade to rapidly shift reinforcements to threatened sectors. Conversely, the Confederate line stretched into a sweeping 5-mile exterior ring, making coordinated, simultaneous attacks nearly impossible. Second, ancient geological activity formed rugged, boulder-strewn heights. Hard diabase rock formations at Devil's Den and Little Round Top provided natural, practically impregnable fortresses for the Union defenders, heavily favoring the defensive posture. Day 1, the collision, begins in the morning when Heth's Confederate division, searching for supplies, collides with Union cavalry under Brigadier General John Buford on Chambersburg Pike. By 8 a.m., Buford's dismounted cavalry employs crucial delaying tactics along McPherson and Hare Ridges, buying vital time for Union infantry. Around noon, the Union First Corps arrives, but Commander Major General John F. Reynolds is killed in action. Ultimately, Union lines collapse under the weight of two massive Confederate corps. By late afternoon, the critical outcome takes shape. Retreating Union forces secure the high ground at Cemetery Hill and Culp's Hill. General Lee orders Ewell to take Cemetery Hill, if practicable, but Ewell hesitates, allowing the Union to fortify overnight. On Day 2, flank assaults and geological defense, General Lee attempts a massive, J-shaped assault to strike both ends of the Union fishhook simultaneously. On the Union left flank, Longstreet unleashes vicious fighting in the Wheatfield, Peach Orchard, and Devil's Den. The Union narrowly saves its line when Chief Engineer Warren rushes troops to the bare summit of Little Round Top, which is heroically secured by Colonel Chamberlain's 20th Maine and Brigadier General Vincent. Meanwhile, on the right flank, Ewell launches escalating assaults against Culp's Hill and East Cemetery Hill, gaining ground but failing to dislodge the entrenched Union defenders. The critical outcome? The Union holds. Meade's compact interior lines proved decisive, allowing him to shift Hancock's Second Corps and others to plug gaps wherever the Confederates strike. We arrive at Day 3, the climax, where General Lee gambles everything on the Union center. The afternoon opens with a massive artillery duel, a 2-hour, 150-gun Confederate bombardment designed to soften the Union center on Cemetery Ridge. Next comes Pickett's charge. Approximately 12,000 Confederate infantrymen step off into open fields, marching nearly a mile under devastating Union artillery and rifle fire. In a brief moment known as the high water mark, a small fraction of Confederates from Armistead's brigade breaches the stone wall at the angle, but they are quickly killed or captured. The critical outcome is absolute. The charge is violently repulsed. With roughly 60% of the attacking force lost to staggering casualties, Lee's strategic offensive capability is permanently shattered. Finally, we examine the casualties of war, detailing the staggering human cost of the three-day battle. Total casualties range from over 46,000 to 51,000 killed, wounded, or missing. The casualty ledger reveals the toll on both sides. The Union Army sustained 23,049 total losses, heavily hitting the First Corps with over 6,000 casualties, followed by the 2, 3, and 11th Corps. Meanwhile, the Confederate Army of Northern Virginia suffered between 23,231 and 28,000 total losses, with the 3rd Corps bearing the brunt at nearly 8,500 casualties. Ultimately, this sheer devastation heavily crippled both commanders' ability to maneuver further, as entire brigades and divisions completely ceased to exist as combat-effective units. We conclude with the strategic and geopolitical outcomes of this monumental clash. Immediately following the battle on July 4, Lee's battered army began a tortuous retreat through the rain back to Virginia. Though Meade failed to aggressively pursue and trap Lee at the Potomac River, allowing the Army of Northern Virginia to survive and prolong the war, the long-term geopolitical shifts were absolute. Gettysburg marked the ultimate turning point, shifting the strategic initiative permanently to the north and forcing Lee into a defensive posture of attrition. Paired with the simultaneous Union capture of Vicksburg, the Confederacy was bisected geographically, and any lingering prospect of European recognition evaporated completely. Finally, we reflect on the enduring legacy left in the wake of this devastating conflict. The immense loss of life necessitated the creation of the Soldiers' National Cemetery, dedicated on November 19, 1863. It was at this dedication that President Abraham Lincoln delivered his historic 272-word Gettysburg Address. With immortal words, he fundamentally transformed the meaning of the war, shifting the Union's purpose from merely preserving a fractured nation to actively fighting for human equality and a new birth of freedom. Today, this landscape stands as a monument to national reconciliation and the ultimate symbol of the profound human cost of the American Civil War.